So sorry, what the F is happening with the Lively versus Baldoni trial? Well, let me tell you about July 2025 because shit was insane. Like, insane. July 2025 was the time when the tensions around Blake Lively's alleged smear campaign really started to escalate. So, she is on this warpath to try and prove that there is this invisible online campaign where people are trying to ruin her reputation and make her look bad. They're doing it nefariously, secretly, untraceably. And that is what she is out to try and prove. In effort to prove this untraceable smear campaign, Blake Lively and her legal team started to serve subpoenas to try and gather information. The odd part is that people were finding out that they were being subpoenaed or were going to be subpoenaed via TMZ and the Daily Mail. AKA, there was a huge PR hit that was sent out on July 1st and 2nd for Perez Hilton, Candace Owens, and Andy Senior. Those subpoenas were not served until days later. So it was a little bit of not only mental torment, but manipulation of the headlines that are being served to people. In addition, on July 3rd, Blake Lively and her legal team decided to go, you know what? Let's see if any of the content creators that are making videos that are unfavorable to Blake Lively are involved. Surely they're being paid off by Justin Baldoni and the legal team, right? So they served a subpoena on July 3rd to Google, X, and TikTok, trying to backdoor gain banking information, IP addresses, all this data on specific users that have created content that was unfavorable to Blake Lively's reputation. And there was a lot of fallout from that. There was a lot of pushback. There was a lot of letters filed all throughout the month of July. So that sparked a lot of conversation in the online world of, is Blake Lively trying to chill free speech? Is she trying to silence content creators from speaking negatively about her? And there was a lot of people that I interact with that we all know that got subpoenaed. I did not. But that had their information that was at risk of being in the hands of Blake Lively just because why? Because we're reading off legal documents that are publicly available. Like, it's insane. So that caused a lot of hubbub online, and eventually Blake Lively ended up withdrawing those subpoenas for a lot of those content creators and a lot of those major platforms. But she is still on the hunt to try and prove evidence and gain evidence for this smear campaign that she alleges is happening online. And a lot of the online world, again, continues to say, hey, girl, what if this is organic? What if you are the one that is causing the unfavorable opinion of yourself? It's a question to ask. We are critical thinkers here. At least I hope we are. Okay, so as I'm editing this video, I'm realizing that I forgot to say that on the 3rd, Blake Lively and her legal team filed a letter with the court saying that the Wayfair parties dropped 100 terabytes of video data at 11:59 on the 30th, right before midnight. And they were griping because of the passkey, remember? They forgot to give them the right passkey, and that it was on like 14 different hard drives, and 3 were lost in the mail without tracking information. And then there was like, it came without audio, and oh, it was such a time, you guys. I'll include a screenshot and you can go back and find my old video, but it was a good one. So I'm guessing because they knew that her deposition was going to be kind of a wild affair, Blake Lively and her legal team on July 11th went ahead and filed a protective order with the court saying, hey, we need to know in advance who all is going to be in attendance for Blake Lively's deposition, because in learning about depositions, apparently anyone that's in any of the parties is allowed to be there, as well as the fact that she wanted to be able to choose her own location for her deposition, which is also out of the norm because typically you don't get to pick where you are deposed. You are just told where to go and you go and answer all the questions that are asked of you. Blake Lively wanted to be in control, and she wanted to know or be able to pick her own deposition location. And so alas, on July 14th, Judge Lyman went ahead and granted her motion for a protective order, allowing her to pick not only her location, but knowing who was going to be there in advance. And, it speaks, a lot of people were kind of outraged about it. What I will say is that it just kind of told me that the judge wasn't going to rule unfavorably to what could be perceived as a victim. She is making SH allegations, and therefore he was trying to rule as much in favor as and make her feel as comfortable as possible. So she was in control of those things, and that all happened also in this month. The day before Blake Lively was scheduled to be deposed on July 16th, the judge went ahead and dismissed Jed Wallace, the social media guru that is in charge of, hi Jed, I know you're going to watch this, that is in charge of all of the online alleged smear campaign that Blake Lively claims is ruining her reputation and her business. He was completely dismissed from the lawsuit. The judge says he has no jurisdiction in New York. He can't be tried here. You got to deal with him someplace else. Therefore, he was taken out. And he did leave it open-ended, saying, you know, Blake, if you can refile and try and find ways to tie Jed Wallace back to New York and show that he did business here, he has ties to New York, then we can talk again. But for now, you haven't proved it enough, and therefore he can go and be on his merry way in Texas. So that all happened. Therefore, it threw a little bit of a wrench into things because Blake Lively was set to be deposed on the 17th. So with that, they went ahead and pushed Blake Lively's deposition one more time. She got it moved to the 31st of July. Then at the same time, there was a lot of hubbub going on about Blake Lively has some claims saying that she has financial damages in regards to all of the loss of business, the ruining of her reputation, and all the different things that go along with her claims. But with that, she had failed to provide her financial information to Justin Baldoni and the Wayfair parties. So on the 17th, the judge went ahead and granted the Wayfair parties motion to compel, basically saying, yeah, Blake, you're going to have to hand that shit over. If you want to claim all these things, you're going to have to hand over your financial records to the other side. So they got that granted. For the next week or so, there was a lot of back and forth within the docket of motions to quash for the content creator subpoenas, the Google subpoenas. There was a lot of back and forth of fighting between the legal teams going, hell no, you can't have this information, and yes, I want this information. Just, they were at it, right? That happened for like days. July was also the time when Perez Hilton entered the chat because he officially received his subpoena and he was very outspoken about it. He filed quite a few documents, and Perez, if you're seeing this, hello, hi, how's it going? But he filed quite a few documents that I blushed at because I cannot believe somebody could file that as a legitimate legal document. But he did, so power to you, man. Then, not backing down one bit, on July 30th, Blake Lively and her legal team filed a second amended complaint to her overall complaint, trying to tie Jed Wallace back in. She was being deposed the next day, and she goes, like, hell no, this guy's not getting away. He's in charge of all of it. These are his ties. And what she came up with is that Jed, this is so funny. I'm going to try and say it without laughing, but Jed Wallace was texting with people that had New York phone numbers, so therefore he's tied to New York. And you're like, what? Or like, yeah, he liked a social media post that was posted, and you're like, is that how you're gonna tie him there? She tried real hard. I'm putting this in here. It's giving like, you know, those people who are like, yeah, you know, I had a layover in LaGuardia for a few hours, so I've been to New York a few times, and you're like, I don't know if that counts, buddy. And finally, on July 31st, Blake Lively was deposed in her location of choice at her own lawyer's law firm in New York, where she had all the control. So it was a big deal because it was also leaked that Justin Baldoni was in the room, but we also got sneak peeks from people on the ground. I'll show you a picture here and here where they actually showed that Justin Baldoni was like seen that day of in New York in a hotel. And we figured out in the background was Melissa Nathan, Jenny Bolt. So the whole gang was there, and everybody showed up to Blake Lively's deposition. So they're defendants in the case, they're allowed to be there, and therefore they were there in person. And so I cannot imagine the fucking tension in that room, but woo-wee, woo-woo, if you know what I'm saying. So that's our recap for July. I hope this was informative. I'm going to try and record August and etc. tomorrow. I'm going to just slow release these. I'll figure out if I can edit these guys quick enough tonight. But thanks for joining. That's where we are so far.